Welcome to Trends with Benefits, an award-winning podcast by Van Eck with a forward-looking perspective. We explore new ways of thinking about the markets, work, and life. Here's your host, Ed Lopez.
Welcome to another episode of Trends with Benefits. My guest today is Denise Wypiszenski. She is founder and co-CEO of For You, which is an innovative digital platform helping to improve the collaboration between investment management companies and wealth management companies, as well as their advisors. And I want to welcome Denise to the show. Thank you very much for joining.
Well, thanks for having me. Appreciate it, Ed.
You know, when I learned about For You, I was at a conference and I learned that Van Eck actually uses For You. But I thought, what a fascinating service that your company provides. And it's, to me, it disrupted an antiquated process that the financial services industry has relied upon for years, and has, I think, really helped streamline a lot of things. So I definitely wanted to talk to you about that. Also, learning more about you as an entrepreneur, I thought would be really fascinating as well for listeners as well. So again, I'm really looking forward to our discussion today. Where are you based currently?
So I sit in the Chicago suburb. That's where I'm based. That's where the company is based technically. My partner, Aaron, is based out of New York. But we actually say that, we were remote before remote was cool, because, when you go through the process of actually working with some of these large companies, that's part of the questionnaire, where are you located? And so we've always been remote, and our employees are actually all remote as well.
So no physical location other than where you live.
That's correct. That's correct.
That's great. And I know For You really got started in the depths of the pandemic, and a lot of things have changed since then. The way that we work, the way that we operate, interact with people, just even in the economy itself and how it's situated. What are you watching as a leader, as an entrepreneur, right now in terms of the economy, and what's kind of top of mind for you?
So, I think this always goes back to there's not much time to be thinking so much outside of what we do on a daily basis, because we, are kind of catering to the entire industry. So we're always thinking about how can we meet client needs? How can we get advisors what they need faster, more efficiently, so they can be more productive, so they can serve their clients better. So not necessarily any trends, if you will, but more specific to what can we do on a daily basis to make For You more efficient, our clients more efficient, and ultimately the advisors and their end clients, the investors, more efficient.
Are you watching developments in AI, looking into that for your own business, for instance? That's been kind of a hot trend this year.
AI is probably one of the greatest hot dots right now, and it's definitely something that everybody's keeping an eye on. We actually see it as an opportunity to help build on our data, our insights, our analytics, but we also see it as a really important role in financial planning, communications, how are advisors building portfolios. And, we all know that, and having been an advisor myself, like the most important commodity an advisor has is their time. And so if AI can help streamline, some of the more time-consuming elements of the things that are in the advisor role, allowing the advisors to spend more time with clients, those are how we think those AI applications are probably going to do the best and are probably going to be the most well-received. But I actually found it super interesting thinking that maybe AI would come up. I saw that Van Eck actually has a piece called, I think it's called The 5 Do's and Don'ts of Using AI for Financial Advisors, or something along those lines. And you guys actually note that 99% of advisors believe AI will play a future role in financial planning, and that 87% of the people that were interviewed or questioned about it have a super great interest in learning more about tools and how can they help their business. So I thought that was quite insightful on Van Eck's part to actually dip their toe into a perspective on AI, especially when a lot of the industry is still trying to vet AI around the supervision and compliance professionals. So kudos to you guys.
Well, thank you very much. And also, I think kudos to our marketing department that had realized mentioning AI is going to get more hits,
Yep.
web hits. So that was good. We've used AI in a number of blogs. Did you find that on your own system or on our website?
No, I don't have time to go to your website right now, but you guys, I'm sure, have it on your website, but you've also loaded it and submitted it through For You to all of your wealth management partners so that their advisors can be using that information with their clients.
Yeah. And so that's a perfect segue. I think what you do, as I mentioned when I started, disrupted an antiquated process. And for those that don't know, that perhaps are just individual investors, the industry goes through a lot to get content out to you. And your advisor goes through a lot to try to find relevant content to share with you and to learn themselves. Asset management companies like Van Eck will produce a piece, run through a bunch of compliance hurdles or regulatory hurdles. Then we've got to go through hurdles at various platforms like your Morgan Stanleys, Merrill Lynch's, whatever. And they themselves have to track all of these pieces of content, what's approved, what's not approved. And then the advisor themselves are inundated by wholesalers and pieces of content and emails and just trying to cut through all the noise for something that they're really looking for. For You helps streamline all of that, right?
That's exactly right. And, we basically took, to use some of your words, like manual processes, very laborious processes, time-intense processes, and put technology to it. And it's now created an end-to-end, much more efficient platform interface for, as we like to say, for you, the user, regardless of what seat you sit in. So whether you're the wholesaler, whether you're the advisor, whether you're the end client, whether you're the marketing person, compliance person, it really helps provide a much more efficient opportunity for everyone, regardless of your job, your role, and the seat you sit in.
Yeah, I can't believe that it hadn't been developed before or something like this. It was only, 2 or 3 years ago when you guys launched.
Yeah, we launched in September of 2020. And just yesterday, I was talking to someone and I said, I was an advisor 30 years ago. Like, how did we even possibly come up with this? Like, somebody should have come up with this so long ago, because it just makes everybody's life a lot easier in that end-to-end content spectrum.
And today you are working with 300 asset managers, 17 wealth management firms on 150,000 plus desktops, advisor desktops already.
Yeah, that's correct. And it's actually 150,000, just to be clear, wealth management desktops. So that does include advisors. It includes their support teams, some home office. But, the more and more firms each day are turning it on to their field. That's a whole process of single sign-on implementation and what have you. But as they start using For You for that review and approval process, they see that the end game is really getting this very quickly in the hands of advisors so that they can be more efficient and productive in serving their clients.
And to me, that seems like very fast growth. Just kind of considering the buying process at a lot of bigger shops, how long it might take for somebody to evaluate a new vendor. What do you attribute the growth that you've seen so far?
Well, I think that a couple things. You mentioned the vendor process. Well, that is a very long process at a lot of firms, some that you mentioned. And once you're up and running, when a firm like some of those that you've mentioned already that are trying to make their advisors more productive, create efficiency for their clients, see that this can do that, they don't want to run two processes. So For You, everything was very manual. It was a different form at each firm and, different boxes. And so basically we'd like to say we created a common app. Like, you have a kid that wants to go to college. They don't want to fill out 10 applications. They want to fill out one. That's what we've done for this process. And so once a firm enlists the partnership of For You and is using this technology to help that process, they don't want other folks submitting emails with paper forms and spreadsheets and document attachments. So the shift to For You has come very quickly because of that. And we've tried to, along with the wealth management firms, along with the asset management firms, really tried to instill the efficiencies that are gained, why you'd want to be using a platform like this, how it helps everyone. And so, that's kind of what we've done in trying to build that case for why For You. Our clients also know that we don't do any custom work. We're here to help the industry. And as soon as we saw that this was an industry solution, we just continued to collaborate with the wealth managers, with the asset managers. We recently had a call with Van Eck talking about what would be the most useful integration tools around helping you be even more productive. So we just continued to talk to the industry, collaborate, and create a more efficient process.
Can you tell me a little bit about the ideation, kind of where that idea really came from? You were running a different business beforehand, right?
Yeah, so we left corporate for various reasons. I had moved way too many times with kids. And so we started doing consulting work on the street. And there were other former Smith Barney people that were involved in our consulting work. And so we did a lot of different things around product and platforms, around practice management, coaching, etc. And we actually had an opportunity to attend advisor meetings, quarterly meetings hosted by one of the wealth management firms, and present to those advisors. And then go back home and see that the asset manager and the wealth management company, there's this disconnect. Everybody's so engaged at these conferences, and everybody goes back home and kind of like, okay, now what happens? And so how do you build on that momentum over that day or two? So we decided to build the platform where that momentum could be, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. But most importantly, in the advisor's hands and on their terms. So, they have a lot of noise. I was an advisor. You have, branch meetings, client meetings, phone calls, wholesalers stopping in. So there's just so many things coming at you every day. And the most important thing to you is servicing your clients. And so, how could we do that in a way where they were in the driver's seat? And so that's kind of how we got to For You Engage and the dashboard. That's really like an Amazon, Netflix, Google experience right on an advisor's desktop.
For financial content.
For financial content. That's exactly right. Product and marketing resources for themselves, for their own education, for their client education, so on and so forth.
When you were starting the business, what outside of COVID, what were some of the other obstacles that you faced? I guess there was the technology part too, but
definitely getting into a situation where, we were ready to launch in March of 2020. And, we all know what happened then. And so we kind of got put on hold, as you can imagine, because everyone was unclear what was going to happen. So I would say that was definitely one of the greatest challenges. But then what happened is later that year, because we ultimately launched in September, everyone realized that with advisors working from home, with home office people working from home, wholesalers working from home, there wasn't this opportunity to come together in the branches, which is how everybody operated. And so the need for something like For You became even more important. And I think you probably remember, nobody knew what a Zoom call was. Like everybody was on Zoom or WebEx. So I think besides COVID, figuring out technology for the industry was an interesting challenge. And now, you can't go a day without 12 Zoom calls. So it was an interesting time, and we're super fortunate. And I think as soon as we had the opportunity to launch in September, we very quickly were able to onboard a couple hundred asset managers out of the gate because of the need for something to solve for some of these engagement challenges and getting advisors what they needed, when they needed it for their client.
And the name For You, I think I said it a lot every time when I mentioned, individual investors, but how did you come up with For You?
So this is a very interesting story. So we were really struggling on, what were we going to call this? Because, you really only get one chance at naming a company, and then maybe you can rebrand down the road. But my partner, Aaron Epstein, lives in Brooklyn. And we had been talking about this for days and weeks and just couldn't come up with anything we liked. And he was heading home and he walked into his apartment, and his apartment number is For You, for the number U, the letter. And he's like, that might work. And so we initially started talking about this as For You, the advisor, because we said every decision we make needs to be about the advisor to make this a positive experience all around. And then we ultimately realized that it's For You, the user, because it doesn't matter, as I said a little bit earlier, whether you're in the marketing seat, the compliance seat, the end investor seat, the wholesaler seat. It's really a better user experience for you, the user, all around, regardless of your job to be done.
If you're an advisor out there listening, do they know already that they have access to 4U, or do they need to ask somebody? Is that also an obstacle that you face?
Absolutely. Hands down, because, once again, I was an advisor and they're very busy. And that you have to tell advisors and probably everybody in life 12 times about something before they actually pay attention and have the opportunity. So our issue isn't engagement once an advisor knows they have it. Once they know they have it, they realize that, and they're telling us that where it took them over an hour to find what they needed before, it's taking them less than a minute now, but it's making sure they know they have it. So we're on the desktops at many of the major firms already or in process to roll out. So generally, a lot of these firms, it's an icon on their desktop. It's through single sign-on. Most of the firms have also put it into some kind of search. So if you did put 4U, you should be able to find it. But certainly, if you're interested and really want to know if you have it and can't seem to put your finger on it, you can email our support team at support@4uplatform.com, and we are more than happy to connect you with the right people or direct you how to find it on your desktop.
And what about for individual investors? What do you think the benefit for individual investors is?
So absolutely, time is of the essence. That's what I would tell you for sure. And I'm going to give you a perfect example. Silicon Valley Bank. That hit the industry quickly and hard, and everybody was scrambling to learn more about that, right? So why do I say that time is of the essence here? So when something like that happens pre-4U, and you know this, Ed, coming from an asset manager, you have folks that are writing thought leadership about that incident, right? And then you have to get it over to your internal compliance people. Then you have to get it over to your wealth management compliance people. They have to review it. They have to approve it. They have to assign an approval code. Then it gets out to advisors somewhere, or probably through your wholesalers. And then the advisors know about it 2 weeks or 2 months later and can then get it to their clients. That's not what their clients want. That's not what end investors want. They want, information when they need it. And so in that instance, that happened on a Thursday or Friday. And over the weekend, we had over 100 pieces of content submitted by firms like Van Eck through 4U to be reviewed and approved. And by Monday afternoon, we had 144 pieces of approved thought leadership on, what's happening with Silicon Valley Bank, what's happening in the banking industry. And advisors had that immediate information from trusted experts like Van Eck that they could share with their clients, either on SVB or on the banking industry in general.
How many employees do you guys have?
So interestingly enough, we have a very slim internal team. So we have, besides Aaron and I, we have 3 very senior folks on our leadership team. We have several independent contractors that we use so we can staff up, staff down. We're an online platform. And so the service is minimal because it's so easy to use that once you learn how to use it, you just continue from there. And then we have an outsourced development team of 20 people.
For your internal team, the people that are around most of the time, I wondered how you develop culture, if that's been any bit of focus for relationship of team members within the firm at all. I mean, that's one of the arguments that people say about coming back to the office is you need that to foster the culture that you want.
Yeah, and I think that's interesting because even in my prior roles, like when you're at a major organization, it's hard. I think culture may or may not be overused depending on who you ask. Also interesting though is the people that we have hired are people that we've known for years and years and years. So Aaron's college friend is our CTO and had a long history in the tech space on the West Coast. He's remarkable. And it's somebody we could trust instantly because they've known each other for years. Our CAO is someone I worked with back at Smith Barney 25 years ago and have known her ever since. Our chief engagement officer, who I know has been doing some work with you guys, we've known for years because her previous firm did our beta test for advisors. So she immediately, fell in love with For You and has always wanted to be here. So due to the size of our team, due to the history of all of us, we have a very, I would just say, casual culture of more friendship, and everybody knows what we're all trying to accomplish on a daily basis. So I don't know that it's as comparable to the corporate cultures and this whole issue now of going back to work, not going back to work, or to the office, which somebody brings up every single day and shares their opinion one way or the other.
Yeah. Everyone's got an opinion on that these days. And it's fascinating to see what's happening in the office market as well. Just going to see how that's going to play out. But you don't have to worry about that.
Well, and right, because before COVID, I mean, we all know this, there was no way advisors were going to work from home. It just wasn't, possible with compliance and what have you. And now it's become the norm, and most of them do not want to go back to the office. After
your time as a branch manager in financial services, how did you make the transition to entrepreneur? I think you had another business before For You. Is that right?
Yes. So, I decided rather than moving with kids that were in high school at the time, I was just going to take what I knew and be able to actually spend some time because, a long time had passed with, kids moving many, many times. And so I said, I got this. I know the industry. I know a lot of people. The one thing about the industry is that the street is very, very small. And everybody we know, whether it was for the consulting work that we did or For You, is sitting in a seat somewhere at a different firm. And so it's, just reconnecting with those folks. So I said, I didn't know exactly what I was going to do, but I knew if I talked to a lot of people that there would be some consulting work that could come out of that. I personally was super fortunate to start building relationships with organizations and people that were still in corporate, and then found Aaron, who's my current partner. He and his consulting firm, because he had done the same thing, they were looking for additional business. So, through my contacts, we were able to do some work there. Then we had 2 or 3, 4 other Smith Barney people who had all left corporate, all were doing consulting, and pulled them in as well. So we just basically each did our own business, but then worked together collectively to help everybody from banks to asset managers to wealth management firms just solve for challenges around their platforms, their practice management, their marketing, etc. And that ultimately evolved into recognize the opportunity to build For You.
In your pathway as an entrepreneur, any serious pangs of doubt that you had to overcome?
You know what? You knew the business, but it's very different. It's very different. Being an entrepreneur is one thing. And I would say that previous to For You, I just believed that, I could find, if you will, and maybe sounds naive, but I could find the next project. I could find the next opportunity. I think it's more difficult to be an entrepreneur in the For You example, because we have a lot of people counting on us. And that is very different than when you're an entrepreneur individually out there. Even though I worked with other consultants, we weren't, all dependent on each other to, make a living or, work to support our families. So I think being an entrepreneur in a situation like For You is very different. And there's different things that I probably should have thought about or maybe knew before coming in, but just didn't really have that experience yet.
Yeah. So that was going to be one of my other questions, which was if you were speaking to young entrepreneurs or even, just entrepreneurs, so they don't have to be young, but
yeah.
looking to start a business.
They're not old like me. Yeah.
What did you learn, or what would you advise them about something maybe that you wish you knew before you got started?
Well, one thing that I probably knew, but didn't really think too much about is that you have to always be on. And, that might sound a little cliche, but that's the definition of an entrepreneur, right? Like, you're always on. Our team knows that they can always find me, whether it's a call, Slack, text, email, what have you, but that I can always help them get what they need, and so much so I was just telling somebody the other day, my husband and I, her 33rd wedding anniversary. And this was just 2 weeks ago. And we were going to go to the U.S. Golf Senior Open. And it was a hot day. And I said, look, heads up, like, my computer is not going to be in the car, like, because it's too hot. So I'm not taking it with me. So I am going to be away for a period of time. And so, you always have to be on. And for me to have to say that to the team was odd, but it's true. I always have my computer with me. But, kind of kidding aside, like, I think, people have said in the past, like, it can be lonely. And I think balancing the role of being an owner versus a team member is really, really something to think about and be aware of, because as an owner, you're like constantly thinking about, like, how transparent should I be? Like, how much is enough to share with the team? How much is too much? You want to make sure that you inspire confidence in, your folks, but it's hard to be positive 100% of the time. It really, really is. So if I was giving advice to people thinking about it, being an entrepreneur, I would say you need to make sure that you have that person, those persons, that you yourself can have a confidant that you can talk to, somebody that knows the business and that is safe, that you can confide in. A lot of people hire coaches, and some people have that one friend, that fits that role, but just having someone is important.
Now, I know you're really focused on the business. As we start to close out, one question I ask our guest is, what's one long-term trend you see playing out over the next year or several years? So your answer could be about the business, or it could be about anything else that's kind of top of mind that's really of interest to you.
I, as you and I chatted a while ago, and thinking about the trends and what have you, one thing that is really important when I was an advisor was still this focus on value add content and wholesalers who provided that content. So you guys know at Van Eck, because we talked about one of your best pieces out of the gate here on this call, providing that forum for advisors to tap into your professional development content, your value add content. That's not going away. Like, advisors want and need that type of resource. And I think there's a number of factors that are going into that, and those aren't going away anytime soon either. It's like advisors need the professional development. There's constantly regulatory changes. There's complex tax and planning issues, and the investors who are on this podcast are getting more savvy by the day because they're doing their own homework in choosing an advisor. So interestingly enough, what we see, and this is going back to, like I said, when I was an advisor, from our data here at 4U, we see that advisors engage with professional development and value add content twice as much as product content. But interestingly enough, the asset managers are still submitting more product content than value add and that type of content.
Hard to resist.
Yes, I know. And, we, as a matter of fact, and this is going to be super interesting to the advisors on here, is that, so we've been doing a lot of partnering with JD Power and all of their satisfaction studies, and recently hosted a webinar. We have another one coming up where they're going to release their advisor satisfaction results. And professional development was one of the most highly ranked items in the survey as to advisor satisfaction. So, this goes back to when I was an advisor. It goes back to what we're seeing on 4U, and then also what JD Power saw in up to their most recent survey. So I think that that's a definite trend that is not changing anytime soon. And that's, once again, the advisor's focus on professional development content that's value add to them and ultimately their end investors.
Important to keep in mind for providers like myself and the type of content that we put out. So good points. As we round out, as we finish out, we do a speed round called Trend or Fad. And I'll ask you about 3 or 5 different concepts, some investment related, maybe some just pop culture, whatever. No wrong answer. You can pass if you like. You can explain it if you like. But you ready to play?
Oh, geez. Okay, here we go.
Let's see. Sustainable investing, trend or fad?
Well, I would have said trend, but I think recently it's not getting as much positivity around that everyone would like in the press. So maybe fad.
robots, trend or fad?
They're scary. I don't know. I don't think that they've done enough to develop into being a trend yet. Maybe that changes down the road.
Lab-grown meat, trend or fad?
That's just gross.
And the 4-day work week, trend or fad?
Oh, let's hope that that's a trend for the future.
Oh, as a boss, as an owner, you would advocate for a 4-day work week?
So yes, and here's why. And I'm just speaking to like my own experiences and what we do at 4U. You know, I'm a big believer in it's what you do with the time you are at work, not how much time you are at work. And so I think that's really important. But more important is we used to have calls every day of the week. And it might be a client call, it might be an internal call, it might be with our development team, what have you. And we started saying no more calls on Fridays. No calls on Fridays. And people's demeanor and positivity around that is extremely exciting because you could be working, but just knowing you don't have to go from back-to-back calls all day is a huge sigh of relief and really leaves people a little bit refreshed on a Friday as opposed to drained on a Friday and looking forward to, getting into the next week.
That's great. So thank you very much for joining me on the podcast today. What's the best way for people to learn more about 4U and perhaps connect with you?
So they can go to 4uplatform.com, check out our website, check out our news on the site. Any questions about whether we're actually at your firm or how to find us on your desktop if we are at your firm, you can certainly reach out to our support team at support@4uplatform.com. And you are more than welcome to email me directly at Denise@4uplatform.com. Always happy to chat with people.
Fantastic. Denise, thank you very much.
No, thank you, Ed. This has been fun.
And thank you for tuning in to another episode of Trends with Benefits.